First off, I'd like to say Happy New Year to everybody. I know that I said that I'd make a video in just a week, but then school and finals came up and then I wasn't able to do it. And then I had like a lot of art block during this time too, so that also contributed to the fact that I didn't want to draw and it made it not be a week anymore, and now it's like 3 weeks instead of the week that I said that it would happen. So yeah, that happened. Anyways, as I promised, this video is based off the story that I've been writing since I was like, what, 7, maybe 9, and has continuously grown. I'm very happy with how this story is coming out. The idea is for it to be a comic, but I'll explain a lot more later on about that. But it's supposed to be a comic about how the reader is a part of the story and how the reader is actually the main character. Now, this isn't your like normal typical YN. No. This is like the reader is genuinely the biggest part of the plot, and depending on what the reader chooses, that's how the story goes. This is an idea that I've had for such a long time, and because I read YN when I was younger, it started like infiltrating my brain. I'm like, I want to make YN but better, in a way that it makes sense for the reader to be a part of the story, not just love interest, ooh, ah, no. This is something more, and I will explain the story as you see the drawings that appear on screen. So without further ado, let's do that. So the story, of course, takes place in a fictional world. Magical entities exist. It first starts off with the idea that the author created the story, created the first ever characters of this story, but there was no world. It then builds off of how the author takes the time to make a world for these characters to basically rule over. So these bigger characters are going to be like the gods, the ones who control everything or control most. So the author, of course, not wanting this story to be boring, gives these characters powers, gives these characters the ability to create things in many ways, and these characters create little creatures. They create magical creatures to each their own. And the author, being bored of just normal happiness, of course, decides to add some chaos and creates the first ever humans in the world. These humans, of course, being humans, destroy everything. They destroy all the creatures, they hunt them for sport, and soon all the creatures are quote-unquote extinct. But they are not extinct. In fact, the first ever characters that the author created made a sanctuary so that they couldn't be hunted and they could live in peace. The author didn't really care for that, so they let it happen and watched the humans continue to grow their empire. Of course, humans do what humans always do. War. There's fights, constant butting of heads on which god is better, on which one should be the ruler of all. And war was waged and won at the end, but they all came to the idea that the god of darkness and shadows should not be, cared for, because, the darkness of shadows, the god of darkness and shadows, that doesn't really sound like a good person, or at least in the eyes of a human. So they cast anybody who believed in that person or that god out, and then continuously built up their own kingdoms while casting out that specific group. And of course that specific group grew bitter and cold and started hating the other groups, because they're like, how could they not care for a god that has created so much? And so that leads to them finding dark magic with the help of the author and creating even more chaos in the world. Now this world is basically, it runs on these sorts of like crystal energy. It's basically batteries, or their life source. The world's life source are these crystals. So if one of these crystals goes, like it's harmed or anything in any which way, it will destroy the world, or it will at least start to become unbalanced to the point where it will be destroyed later on. And so that's the idea that this group of like evil people try to do. They want to destroy the world because they have to show how darkness and shadows are important. And of course, the others don't want that. So that's basically the base of the story, of how everything happened and how everything was created. Of course, I'll have to go in and add more stuff. This is just like the main idea. And not only that, this whole story has been accumulating for years. It first started off as like, what if it was a knockoff Avatar: The Last Airbender? And then it kind of still is, but it's better than just a knockoff. It's more planned out. So that's kind of what I've had for quite a long time, just the idea, but never really writing it down until recently. I'm finally starting to plan out how I want everything to be, all the creatures and stuff. I'm planning on having like large squid monsters because I love leviathans and mermaids and water nymphs, and I just love those types of stories. And so I've been planning it out for a while, and I finally have the main idea of what I want it to be. So that's basically first off how it starts. Now this next drawing is one of my characters. Her name is Lena. Lena is a part of one of the many kingdoms that basically focuses on hunting, and they're very like hunting, game, sports, athletically based. And she's one of the many people who hunt for food for everybody in the town, or in the kingdom, if you will. They always bring food for very special occasions, or just help hunt for smaller towns in the kingdom. Of course, she has to be one of the best. She's incredibly skilled when it comes to hunting, and her backstory basically starts off with her and her sister were young children wanting to become these great warriors and be honorable to be a part of the hunt. And so every year there is a small competition on which person in each town could get the biggest hunt. Each town does this, and they will always do it because that's how the story goes, I guess. I don't know. But they do it every year, and finally Lena and her sister are finally of age to do it. So they go out and they find bears. Of course, it's hard to just hunt a bear, so they start off small. They grab berries, they put them in a certain area so that a deer would be able to get them, and then they get the deer and they hunt the deer, but then they use the deer as the bait for the bears. And so they each kill their own bear and are capable of bringing it back to the competition, where they show off to everybody else how they were incredibly gifted. Now Lena is more of the brutal type. She's more of hand-to-hand combat, and they noticed that the one knife that she carried was clean. It was completely clean. There was no blood on it. There was no scars. But then they noticed her hands. Her knuckles were bruised and bloody and covered in scratch marks all over, from her hands all the way to her face. She had a scratch mark on her eye from the bear, but it looked like she didn't even care. She calmly explains that she was just in a panic and in a rush, so she didn't even have time to pull out the knife, so she started beating the bear with her own hands, feet. And so that, of course, got her a front row seat, or front row ticket, if you will, to this place, to the kingdom, to become one of the hunters. And her story, I'm planning on having a little more than just that. If you can see from like the gauntlet that she has, there's a little crystal in there. Each kingdom gives out crystals to certain warriors or royalty or stuff like that, because these crystals are said to have like energy, like strength. And because Lena is one of the hunters, each hunter has their own crystal, or two, it depends on how they do it. So she has just one large crystal on the gauntlet that gives her even more power. So it's basically all I have for Lena. There isn't really much to talk about with her, because her story is one of the ones that is more planned out compared to the others, her and her sisters. So that's basically it, but I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of the drawing here. And I'm really happy with how this final drawing came out. It was really simple, but it was the first of all of them, and I thought it was really cool. Now, for the next character, Laura, Lena's sister. Technically they're twins. I would like to put that out there. They're twins. And originally, Laura was supposed to be a guy, and it was kind of like, I don't remember, or I don't think I have any drawings of how Laura looked beforehand, but I do remember that her name was supposed to be Liko, and he was supposed to be like this really shy, just shut off character. And so I decided, I'm like, hey, since this character was originally a guy, why don't I technically switch it up a little? And I made her trans. She's transgender. She is honestly an incredible fighter, and as you can see, I gave her the amazing, incredible, immense, creative idea ever. I gave her yo-yos as her weapon. And of course, these are not ordinary yo-yos. You'll see later on in the drawing that they are covered in like little sharp spike knife things, and I think that's pretty cool. So that's something. And I think I'll just leave it be, because I don't really have anything else to say about this drawing, so I'll just let it go. So enjoy the rest of the drawing. I honestly think her like yo-yo weapons are really cool. Besides that, that's pretty much all I gotta say for that final drawing. This next drawing is my character Milo, which if you've seen on my Instagram or on my, I don't know if I posted him a lot on my TikTok, but he's very much present in my Instagram. He's my, would I say avian? No, he's more like a bird creature. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the word or the term that I want to use for those, for that species in my story. But this character, Milo, he's basically an orphaned, winged boy who is found by the evil group in my story, because the only way to corrupt crystals is to infuse them with blood, and it's very rare to find these creatures because everybody thinks that like different magical creatures and species are extinct, but Milo somehow was left outside or dropped somewhere and they found him, and so they're planning on infusing him with like a crystal with his blood. And so that's basically what they were trying to do. And later on, I'm going to explain more another story of another character that actually includes Milo very much, because Milo is basically the little brother figure of my other character for the next drawing called Monu. And Milo is just the silly, happy guy who just loves everything. He has a girlfriend. Her name is Stella, and I love them. I love to draw them, doodle them. They're incredible. So yeah, Milo's just this happy little character who loves to talk. Honestly, he loves to talk. His favorite food is bread. It always has been bread. It always will be bread. Specifically raisin bread. He loves raisins. I'm not making him be like me. My throat made a funny noise. I'm not making him be like me, I swear. But yeah, so he's just this silly character that I've loved for so long, and I've honestly had him for so long. His character's design and stuff has been honestly, I'm pretty sure he and his brother Monu were the first characters of this story that I ever created, Milo being the first one that I created out of the two. So Milo technically is my oldest character in this story, even though he's only 13 compared to the others. This, of course, is very wishy-washy. This is just the idea of him, so if you want to learn more about Milo, don't worry. You can go to my Instagram and figure out some more about him. He's very silly and I love him. I'm pretty sure out of all of them, this one is my favorite drawing because I love Milo, but that's just me being a little biased. So yeah, I didn't want to do a digital drawing for Monu, but I will explain his story. Monu was this orphaned child. He lived in what I call the Ignis Kingdom, which is like the Fire Kingdom, but let's ignore that. He lived in the Ignis Kingdom, and of course not many people liked him because he was very quiet. He wasn't as outgoing as the other people, and he was actually born deaf. He can't hear at all. He uses sign language to communicate. A lot of kids would make fun of him for this and mock him by like jokingly like making their own signs at him because, you know, kids are mean. So one day these kids decide to play a prank on him far worse than any of the other pranks that they pulled on him before. And there's like a little bit of a myth or like a legend that there's shadow people in the forest. So they guide him to the forest, like making him think that they want to play with him, but then leave him in the forest. And turns out these shadow people actually do exist and they kidnap him. He doesn't really remember what happened. He just kind of wakes up in this weird looking cell and sees this small child with large white wings that he did not expect to see that day. And the child is crying. And his brotherly instincts kicked in and he immediately started caring for the child like it was his younger brother. He named the child Milo because there was no other way to call him because there wasn't another name he had. So he named him Milo. And these shadow people wanted to infuse them with these crystals, their blood with these crystals. Of course, he wouldn't let that happen. So that's basically Monu's story. There's a lot more to it than just that, but I don't really want to give a lot away from Monu's story, so that's just the basis. I'm actually really happy with how this sketch doodle came out. And finally, the last drawing of the video, which is my prince character, my incredible prince. His name is Rhett. Did I take that name from Rhett from Good Mythical Morning? Maybe, but you cannot prove it. He is basically just this Latino prince who loves his culture. He loves his culture very much. He loves his people, his culture, everything. But his culture isn't really appreciative of marine biology, and he loves marine biology. He's a marine biology nerd. He loves marine biology, he loves botany, he loves science in general. It's something that has always sparked his interest. And his culture is very spiritual. It's more of the idea that the crystals are what guide them, and the god that they follow will forever guide them in a spiritual way. But he, of course, with all due respect to his culture, is not 100% on that and believes much more in science. And maybe I'm inflicting a little bit of myself on here, but I'm not going to say anything because we don't really want to talk about that. But he loves marine biology. He constantly asks his parents for his birthday to send him to the coastal kingdoms where there's a lot of marine life and marine biology courses that he can take and study from. And of course they're reluctant, but they allow him to do it because it's something that they think is just a hobby and will never grow to be more than just a hobby, which of course is a lie. And Rhett is actually one of the characters that I'm really happy about, but I don't have a full-fledged story for him yet, or what type of character arc I want him to have. So that'll take a while, but I'll figure something out. He's very temperamental. Is that the word to say? He's very moody. He gets grumpy a lot. But later on in the story, he meets Laura, which, as you know, is my transgender character, and he falls in love with her immediately. Of course, she isn't really open about her being transgender, but when Rhett finds out, he's 100% like, hey, it's okay, I understand, I still love you. And it's something that I was really happy that I got to write about, because I love writing about like romance in my own characters. It's just so much fun to write about it, because you just get to write like these fantasy romantic moments with these characters, and it just feels great. It just feels like it gives you own like little butterflies in your own stomach, because you're like, oh, these are so cute and I created them. And that's basically how I feel every time I write about like a little bit of romance in my characters. But yeah, Rhett is one of my, I would have to say one of my favorite ones, but he is like not as planned out as Mona and Milo are, as well as like Laura and Lena are. So that's definitely something that I will have to work on, and will work on. Just will take a little bit of time, honestly. But besides that, yeah. He's pretty much just that. Just a little prince who loves science and loves learning about things, and he likes to have a little bit of fun. So that's basically all that Rhett really is, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of the drawing. And this final drawing is honestly, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think I say that about all the drawings that I make, but it's true. I'm really happy with how every single one turned out. And that's the end of the video. Of course, I can make more on, I could do a whole other video explaining the whole lore, but there's just so much that I have to plan out still, and so much that I have to make sure that there's not any plot holes left, make sure that there's nothing wrong with the story. Do research for different types of cultures that I don't want to do cultural appropriation for, and I want to actually take the time to read about those cultures to be able to interpret them and talk about them openly without it being like wrong. So that'll take time. Definitely a lot more time that I would expect it to take, because I love doing research and it sometimes becomes a little more than I ask for. But that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching it. I hope you enjoyed the brief explanation of what my story is like, each one of my characters, and Happy New Year if you celebrate, or I don't know if people said, does everybody celebrate New Year's? I don't know. Happy New Year. Hopefully I'll get another video out in a week, but I have no idea. So let's hope for the best. And start the new year off on a good foot, I don't know. on the right foot. There you go. There, that's the term that people use. But yeah, let's just relax. Have a nice New Year. I still have like another week before I have to go to school, but that's definitely going to go up very easily and very quickly. That timer is tick tick ticking. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.